Deals happen today, man. The economy must be reopened, y'all. Must be reopened because deals are happening. Funny thing about economies is we don't give the local economies enough credit. You know, if you're in an area where your local economy is solid, then you're probably potentially good in many aspects. But no mistake about it, there is a global and national, but global worldwide depression. What's weird about it, or odd, is that last time we had an American depression, it wasn't necessarily a global depression. So things were bad in America, but for example, over in Germany, they were doing great because things were terrible in Germany in the 20s, things were great here. I know my audience enjoys tactical, right? Like you guys love to talk about like, all right, what are the tactics? Like, right, what's the game plan? If there is an economic collapse or depression, maybe not collapse, we needed a collapse in my opinion because we have to let these zombie companies fail. I was telling my younger brother, I was like, bro, Ford's going bankrupt. Like, it's going bankrupt. Like, it is what it is. Because last time I called the recession, my parents are in real estate. They're like, there's no recession coming. I was in high school. I wrote a paper. I got a freaking B on it because I said we're in a recession. And then at the time, the teacher was like, well, we're at peak. And actually, we'd go to church with this guy. And I'm like, yo, Mike, who was right? I was right. Because now the economic data supports that actually back in 2007, February, we were actually in a recession. Recession is not that big of a deal. It's 2 quarters of negative economic growth. It could be 1% negative. It's not a big deal. Like, it's just like, hey, you're down from where you were at this point last year. It's not a huge deal. Depressions are a little bit more sticky and ooey and gooey because traditionally, to get an economy out of the recessions, you'd have to drop interest rates 4.5% to 5%. Those are the numbers of the last 12 recessions. It's taken a 4.5% to 5% interest drop. Well, they dropped the interest rates to 0. So they're not in a position to do it. Had they risen the interest rates to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9%, then they would have the margin to play with it, right? It's kind of like being in your personal like checking account. Like, do you have some margin in there? If you don't have some margin in there, then sometimes you make stupid decisions because you're making short-term plays. What's good for now? What's good for clearing a check tonight? How do I get this in the bank? Okay, well, how do I short? You know, like you're playing all these games as opposed to like, yeah, I got 2-3 years of expenses in the bank. I don't really care if I do anything today or not. Like, whatever. It's good for me, right? So margin versus no margin. The U.S. government has no margin. Now they have the ability to print money out of thin air. And in many ways, and I want to educate you guys on this because I understand you guys not necessarily geek out on econ books. I buy and read econ books because I freaking geek out on it because I love it. And I've been anticipating this event for a very long time. And if you guys have been following for a while, you knew like we were busting our butts last year to sell a house. We're selling that. We're moving it, making different moves. I had a couple haters who were like, how come you aren't rebuying this machine or that machine? I'm just like, hey, there's a reason. There's a reason. And you're going to see. And I didn't know that the coronavirus was coming, but I knew that the corporate debt bubble was coming. And so people ask, for example, and I think it's pretty obvious, like what happens when Ford goes bankrupt? A lot of people get laid off. And then it trickles down, right? It just goes all the way down. Younger brother, when I was like, bro, the Ford's going bankrupt, and do the math. Because he's like, there's no depression coming. I'm like, bro, the numbers are so much more incredible and amazing than they were in the 20s. And in many ways, so is the technology and the people, which is cool, right? Like, back then, people were out of job, and if you're living in Illinois and there's no jobs, and it is what it is. Nowadays, it's like, can you get online and find work? Can you do stuff? And so I think that maybe people won't be out of work for as long, but you have a government that's paying people, literally. People that are getting laid off are getting more in unemployment benefits than they were making at their previous salaries. And the road to serfdom, Friedrich Hayek would tell you this is the beginning of a communist-like movement. Whether we go full commie or not, when the government is printing more money than people were able to make before, and really it's currency because the government doesn't have money, like they have currency. It becomes a very dicey situation because, how do they want to go back to work? Is there an incentive for them to go back to work? But we do live in a culture where team entrepreneur is prevalent. So I believe very strongly that the millennials will be like, okay, well, let me find opportunity for myself. Let me make opportunity for myself. Let me not have a job. Actually, this is cool because when you are an entrepreneur, you get all the tax benefits. There's a whole bunch of things and there's a lot of reasons why you would want to be an entrepreneur and why I think that this is going to be a really good turn of events. The problem is that we have a government that won't allow the old dogs to die. And that would be like your Boeings and your Deltas and your Fords, and like, let's get them out of the way so that the younger entrepreneurs can get some sunlight here, just like a forest fire. Like, you need to occasionally burn the trees down so that the new ones can sprout and the whole system can be a lot healthier. And long term, there's no holding that back. You can't hold back a tsunami. It's coming. But how much pain will be a result of it is how long we hold it back. Are we going to allow things to naturally occur, or are we going to artificially prop them up? Straight to the tactical, right? If you look at this, aggregate demand is going to be down. Okay, that means that people are going to spend less than they typically did. There's no pent-up demand. No one's itching to go buy new boats and planes. Like, it's not happening right now. People are like, all right, I'm going to hold on to my cash a little bit, see what's going on, what's good. And the results of that is a deflationary effect. That means if someone's selling something and they're selling it for $2,000 and you're hitting them up and like, hey man, I got cash, but I need $1,500. They're like, it's 25% less than I was asking for it. And so what happens is, long term in a depression, you will see a 30% markdown across the board, every good, service, etc. That's very standard. So there'll be this deflation, and you'll start hearing it in the news a couple months from now. Oh man, we have so much deflation, just like this virus. It's a complete mirage. Everyone will be like, oh my goodness, there's deflation. Meanwhile, they're printing $10 trillion, so there's no real deflation. That's the news story. In the short, long run, right, meaning 12 months, you got deflation coming. That's in everything. That's in real estate. Why would real estate go down, for example? Well, financing is harder, right? Last week I tried to sell a truck. I did sell a truck, but I had it sold at 30 to a credit buyer. And then I had a bunch of cash buyers at 20, 21, maybe 23, maybe 25. And then I had a credit buyer at 27. It was like bingo. But it was work. And I had to pay a friend of mine $2,000 to get that deal done, right? So to keep that price of that truck up, I needed the financing. Same thing with real estate. Like, to keep it up, I need to have financing. Like, we've had deals on the real estate end of things fall apart on us in the last month or two because, like, financing is drying up and all that other stuff. I know there's a ton of liquidity in the market, and they'll preach that, but the banks aren't loaning it out. They're not in any rush. They're like, whoa, things are under lockdown right now. Let's just wait. So what happens is the sellers that got to sell, they're like, yo, I'm coming down 20% of my price. Once people come down on their price, then the comps, so the comparables, right? So that trailer over there, right? That trailer, oh, well, that thing's on Craigslist for $1,200, you know? Why is yours listed for $2,000? So those things happen. Same thing in real estate. All asset classes come down in price. Because deflation is occurring, people are waiting on things like, oh, I was going to buy some property, but man, prices are coming down. Let me just wait on that. Well, that's called the velocity of money, how fast money moves hands, right? So if I have $1 and I spend it right now at Home Depot, and then Home Depot goes and they spend it somewhere else, and then that vendor buys something, how many times, how quick did that occur? And the measurement of that gauge, like an oil pressure gauge in a vehicle, that gauge is called the velocity of money. And the velocity of money is going to go way down right now with the deflation. People are going to hold on to their cash. Just for a moment in time, they're going to hold on to their cash. And it's currency. The books call it money. It's not real money. Okay, it's like electric motors and gas motors. Okay, just pronounce it right. But I make the mistake all the time. So currency. So the currency slows down. The velocity of that currency slows down. That makes sense, right? Meanwhile, your government and Federal Reserve are printing trillions of dollars. They're printing trillions of dollars. In the repo market, which I don't play in, you don't play in, maybe Home Depot plays in, but like the repo market, they're doing $1 trillion in funding a day. Virus, run! And meanwhile over here, print as much money as you can, okay? Print as much as you can. How's everybody doing? And this is what happens in the back rooms, right? This is what's going on. You know this. Okay, so there is mad printing happening. $1 trillion per day. We're not in the repo market. The news anchors aren't in the repo market. Nobody talks about the repo market. So a ton of money printing is happening. So what's going on is there's this nobody believed, like for a moment, that Epstein wasn't going to die in prison. I remember hearing that story and you're like, oh yeah, Epstein's going to get worked. Yeah, he's going to get waxed for sure. Oh, he hung himself. I'm sure he did. Oh, there's no evidence? I'm sure he did. Nobody in America, not a single person, believes Epstein hung himself, right? They understand it's a major, major mirage, covering up something major, like huge, right? Bill Clinton never rode on his jet. Psych. Travelog said he was on it 26 times. Oh, wow. That's interesting, right? Pedophile Island. They went to Pedophile Island 26 times on the jet. Wonder what happened there. Bill Clinton. Wonder what happened there. He's not banging Hillary, so he's banging something. So what occurs during this deflation point is that the government fixes their small holes in the boat by just printing money. So why no one is paying attention, because housing prices are coming down, truck prices are coming down, all prices are coming down. They're printing so much money. So they're just stacking money into the system, right? Just stacking up the bullets in the gun, right? Well, bullets and guns that sit there don't make noise and don't cause violence. But if there's like 5 trillion of them sitting on the sidelines and then one of them gets shot, and then the second one of them gets shot, well, then pretty soon you got 1 trillion of them getting shot, right? Then 5 trillion of them getting shot. Because what happens is when 1 trillion of them get shot, then people are like, yo, they just shot 1 trillion rounds at me. I'm responding with spending 2 trillion rounds back to them, right? So what happens is now the velocity of currency just starts to skyrocket through the roof. This is where the inflation comes into. So those politicians that were just like, working it, stacking, likely are out of office at this point in time. They've printed what they needed to print. They gave Delta their money, they hooked everybody up. Certain shareholders of Delta were like, hey man, we're not gonna make it out of this. Look at the numbers. Okay, sell your stocks, get liquid. And it's the 401ks that are like, oh yeah, my advisor says that everything's great. Yeah, I pay him 1.5% a year to lose money for me. And because I'm too incompetent to manage my own money, because you're an unaccredited investor. So I'm an unaccredited investor. I'm getting out of that title. Basically, if you're non-millionaire, you're unaccredited pretty much. Velocity money goes through the roof. Inflation goes through the roof. Now you've got a situation where you may have high unemployment, high inflation. That's called stagflation. You can't print your way out. You need to raise the interest rates. Well, raising interest rates will cause a short-term recession. And so what occurs is it's a really sticky situation because you're like, oh man, all gauges are off. It's like you're at the red line, you have 0 oil pressure, and you're overheating. So what's the play, right? And you got to keep doing it, because if you're in an airplane and you're trying to keep like above the cornfields, like you can't just ditch it. You know what I mean? So you're like, what's the play? What do we do? You know what I mean? Do we lower RPM? Like what do we do? And the situation in stagflation gets very, very dicey, because when you start playing with money supply and propensity to spend and etc., eventually you just wreck. And it's inevitable where the whole thing just blows up, and that's where you get your collapse. If you see this occurring and you know this is happening, then you can play it and you go, okay, well, what do I need right now? What do I not need? Number 1. So let's sell while prices are good. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Number 2, during this deflationary period, what do I got to get, right? For me, I got to get an airplane. That's just like on my list of things to do. It's very much in my business plan for the next 10 years. Like I need one. I need the mobility that it comes with. I want the lifestyle that it comes with. I want the social group it comes with, etc. So, okay, that's the opportunity to get what you need to get, right? Interest rates will go negative, right? So if you're like, okay, if I'm going to loan something, that's the point to do it, provided you have a good business model to support that. And then what do you do during the inflationary phase? Right? So things like real estate going through the roof, with the inflation, real assets, hard metals, those things, And so there's your buy and sell opportunities. There's your playbook. At the end of it all, you end in collapse. You end in a new monetary system. You end in a digital dollar, a Fed coin, something, right? Because it's just not sustainable. Right? People don't understand this, but there's going to be a shortage of beer. People are like, what are you talking about? All those stadiums are filled for March Madness. The beer's spoiling. It's going stale. Well, they need the kegs back at the breweries to take the new beer out, right? They're going to dump the beer. Okay? They did this in the Great Depression with milk and all sorts of stuff. Onions right now, all sorts of things, global level, are just basically going to waste, or they're just the whole system is jacked, right? People think we're reopening today parts of the country. Some of America has been woken up and going like, Michigan, congrats on getting your freaking governor whipped into line, because it's like, yo, what the hell is going on here? And I think the American people are like, dude, the Epstein stuff was bullshit. The printing of the money stuff is bullshit, but they don't see that yet. And they're going to see it in a year, but most people don't get excited about this. I get excited about, like, coronavirus is killing off some people. I understand. It's sad. You could have a parent. You could lose a parent. Things like this happen. But the real sad thing is, like, you've got people walking around this country, like these girls in front of me here, like, they're just scared. Like, I mean, just walking around with their masks and stuff, and they're just scared. You know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, that's the opportunity. Because most of America is asleep at the wheel right now. Like, they don't understand they're printing so much money that there is no possible way that you will have an American dollar in the long term. There is no possible way. And history would tell you Yeah, no fiat currencies ever made it past 100 years. So why would the American dollar ever, and we're not even close to 100 years. So like, why would the American dollar make it? So you're at a financial reset in history where you know this is coming. I'm sharing this with you. You know what the next 2 or 3 years look like. And so now you can take that hard data, like that hard like theory, really. Coronavirus is killing off some people. I understand. It's sad. You could have a parent. You could lose a parent. You know, things like this happen. Biblical times, they'd call this the Jubilee, where every 50 years, I think it was Babylon, somewhere like that, the ruler basically decided, okay, look, we're just going to do a national, like, forgiveness of debt. What occurred during the Jubilee is when you got to 50, it was just a wipe out of debt. Like national would just wipe out of debt. Well, they controlled their business cycle this way so that bankers wouldn't be making loans if the Jubilee was coming in 3 years. They knew when it was coming, so they could always control. So they would unwind the debt in the system, and then after the Jubilee, they would wind it back up. And that's called the long run debt curve or debt cycle. So it's a long run debt cycle. In current times, it's 50 to 100 years is our long-term debt cycle. If you go back and you look at the waves of history, you'll see a 50 to 100 year long-term debt cycle. If you look at the smaller waves, you'll see a 7 to 10 year short-term debt cycle. This is your 08, your 2001, etc., right? Your 2020, like you'll see your short-term debt cycle. What's occurring right now is an overlap, an eclipse, if you will, of the long-term debt cycle and the short-term debt cycle, and they're occurring at the exact same time. And at the exact same time, we decided to shut America down and the globe. And so you've got a short-term, you've got a long-term, and you've got a population that's scared and sitting at home. You've got the perfect economic storm for just massive change. Though they're going to plug as many holes in the boat as possible, the boat is broken. Like I told my dad, we hit 3 icebergs on the Titanic this time. We didn't hit 1. We hit 3. We're going to be serving cocktails all hour because we still got some time on the Titanic. Like people right now are like, oh yeah, we're getting back to work. Everything's good, right? It's like, yeah, because we hit an iceberg about a month ago. And we're taking on water like you can't even believe. And the repo market's over there printing $1 trillion a day so that everybody thinks everything's cool. And the second that everybody figures out, dude, they're printing a ton of money. Nobody's spending that money. And everything's going to whack. And then when they find out that there's a beer shortage, and they figure out that. And then they figure out, oh, some of the smaller craft brewers and stuff, can they take that big of a hit? Can they take a no revenue hit? Some small farmers, can they take a hit? This is a global problem. Right? So on a global scale, can the banana, farmers, can they take the hit? My younger brother, when I told him Ford was going bankrupt, he's like, yeah, well, they should have went bankrupt last time. Right. And they didn't take bailout money, so everyone loved Ford. I liked Ford. GM did. But both of these companies really should have disappeared back then. They should have just went away. Because at this point, we'd already have new companies, we'd have new jobs and new factories, and we'd be good, but we decided to prop them up. So the longer we delay the problem, the worse the cancer gets. And there's no stopping it. The real question is who is at the wheel and gets blamed for it when it sinks? That's what it is. Might as well embrace it. That death process is key for moving an economy forward. It's key for moving a genetic species forward. It's key for anything. You have to have beginning and death. It's just how it works. But we've chosen to not let companies like Ford or GM die. And because of that, we're going to continue to prop them up, and we're just going to destroy the financial system while we do it. But you know this, so you can take advantage of this. Culture's gotten so soft and so sophisticated that we just don't believe in natural law, natural selection. Like obese 8-year-olds getting trophies, you got to be giving me a break, man. Company's not making it, so we're just sending them loans or free money or whatever, free currency. Like, come on. That doesn't work forever. It works in the short term, right? Because like your paycheck clears on Friday, but long term, it doesn't work. Things got so politically correct, you couldn't even use your First Amendment right, which is like that kid's 8, he's fat as fuck, and your kid's fat. Sorry. Yeah. Look at a height and weight chart. Kid's 50 pounds overweight. He's eating shit. Stop feeding him shit. But you can't say that, right? So First Amendment right went away. And then, the shootings happened, right? And that's tragic, but like assault rifles, automatic versus non-automatic, that has nothing to do with it. The conversation isn't a automatic versus semi-automatic conversation. The conversation is, if the government has it, I can have it too. If you have an Apache helicopter, me and my friends can have an Apache helicopter. That's what it is. It's written because they just got done killing their last government. Not like, hey, could you guys please get out of office? No. Like, we showed up to your house and we killed everybody in that house. Second Amendment. The reason they wrote the Second Amendment is because, like all things, they go in cycles. There'll be a reset. Like, there's so much theft occurring with politicians that there'll be a reset. It'll be peaceful or it won't be peaceful. But on the economic side of things, it is no question that you're going to see a reset of the monetary system. Complete reset. Will there be a Jubilee? Will there be a forgiveness of debt? Well, in a way, inflating the dollar out of existence is sort of a forgiveness of debt in many arenas, provided you owe a lot of dollars. Now, when is the time to owe a lot of dollars, and what do you owe it on? Do I want to owe a lot of dollars on this Dodge? Hell no, I don't want to owe dollars on a Dodge. Nope. Because that Dodge is not going 19 years like this one, you know what I'm saying? But, like, if I own apartment buildings and I owe millions of them, like millions and millions of dollars, and then all of a sudden the dollar just out of existence, who do I pay? I got my wheelbarrow full of money. Who do I give it to? Nobody, right? Massive transfer of wealth. Massive. For those savvy enough to play it. Now, like the middle class, the poor middle class, they don't partake in that. They don't understand that game, right? They're told, like, save money. Why would you save money if they're printing it? I mean, save real money. That makes sense. But why would you save dollars? Right? Well, you want a little bit of dry powder, right? A little bit of cash because of the deflationary effect. So for the short term, yeah, that's good advice. But if you're planning on, like, saving 10% of your income over the next 30 years and doing nothing with it, well, you're going to have no purchasing power. Now, there's a timing effect to that, like in that example. But the point there is that it's a transfer of wealth. Massive transfer of wealth is going to occur. It's already been occurring. But it's like the biggest transfer of wealth in recorded history. So if you can get ahead of the curve, aka be ahead of the 8 ball, like, you're going to be in a spot to totally dominate, especially if you're a young dude. Like, if you're like a young entrepreneurial type of dude, this is good times for you. All right? Like, you was Gump. Like, there was no other boats. No other boats after that hurricane. Just him. And Bubba Gump Ship Company was killing it. Want bad weather, okay? Because everybody who's too fat, too overloaded with debt, not built for it, they're screwed. You want bad weather because you want to knock out those other boats because, like, Bubba Gump Ship Company. So we're in a time of crazy economic turmoil. But for the moment, everybody's like, oh, it's sunny, it's beautiful out. It's my wedding anniversary, great day, right? It's a beautiful day out, right? Absolutely awesome. Everything's good. Stock market's up 2%, right? Everything's good. Dude, it's going to be gnarly. It took 4 years from the stock market crash of 1929 to get to 1933 when shit really hit the fan. We're here in 4 weeks, and it'll probably take a year, maybe 2. This is the calm before the storm. Make no mistake about it. This is very much like, evaluate what's in your den. Do you like your field position? If not, move, and move fast. Then hunker down in your foxhole and get ready for it. But look at the mortgage crisis that's coming behind this. When those property prices deflate 20-30%, people have 10% equity in their homes, first-time home buyers, 3.5% down on a house, and then the house deflates 20%, poof, negative equity is 17.5. Actually, let's do the ratio. You actually are down 5x. It's negative 5x your down payment. Now, if you need a place to live, you need a place to live. It is what it is. But I'm talking about in the aggregate, massive problem, right? The smart money moves in, starts buying those assets at that rate, and they use fake money to buy it. And then that fake money gets inflated out of existence. Massive wealth transfer from the poor guy who had 3.5 to put on his house to the rich guy that was just buying extra rental properties and then renting it back to the poor guy. Just is what it is. Thinkers at the time, your intellectual thinkers at the time, like your AOCs, are going to be like, oh my God, we already own Boeing. Why don't we just vertically integrate? Why don't we just vertically integrate? Oh my God, that'd be so good. That's like what the private sector tries to do. We can do it better. And that is the death of America. Like, when that occurs, you know the only way this is coming back is either 1, to John Galt out, which means exit society and let them fail, and it will take 25 to 50 years at that point, or 2, take back your fucking country with your Second Amendments, which, I mean, you guys have semi-autos, so I don't know. That's not a good option. Don't do that. That's not a good option. You're going to be best to just wait 50 years. You younger guys have a lot of time on the field, like myself. This is your opportunity. When I tell you guys I'm buying a private jet, like, for Mondays, I'm getting another one for Tuesdays. I'm getting a few. Especially when they outlaw them. You know they're going to outlaw them. Like, come on, let's be real. Those things, like, emit carbon. You know, I agree. Let's outlaw them. You know, drop the price of those jets down to nothing and then repower them later. You know? But like, you know what's going to happen. Slowly but surely. It starts with giving an 8-year-old a trophy. And it ends with debasing your currency. And then it really starts. Up on tactical moves. Liquidate what you don't need right now. Understand there's deflation. Hold cash. Be part of that issue with the velocity of currency. Be part of the problem. Sit there. Make your next moves. Wait for your negative interest rates if you're using debt. Have a damn good business model to back that debt back up. Take that debt out if you want to use it and if you want to play it. Ideally, don't attach your name to it. It can be done. Get as much real wealth as you can. That would be real things. Things that have the word real in them. Like real money physically in your hand. Or real property physically in your hand. Real things. And then wait for the collapse. You're going to get one. It's going to take a long time. We're going to putz along. We're going to be sitting there with milk shortages and beer shortages and all sorts of crap. People will be like, what's going on? Government's going to grow. And eventually it'll implode. And when it implodes, there you go. New society. One of our beaches here, we pay taxes for these. They said you could come to the beach, but they won't be offering parking. So the beach is open, but no parking. Which is one of the best ways to fight infection. A little bit of sunlight, man. A little bit of vitamin D. It's free. But you got politicians, man. Politicians shutting down the beach. It's like, hopefully America's waking up. The local economy here is going to be decimated. Like, a lot of beach photographers. We have one in our family, like, beach photography, you know, weddings, all that type of stuff. Just, you know, it's a joke. Shut down the parking and all that stuff. Hopefully people are waking up and realizing, like, you know, your public goods are not necessarily public goods. And they're not rights. They're privileges. Which, you know, arguably some people would think they're rights, but they're not. So I'm optimistic that, like, this type of situation, I mean, who be these politicians? Where are they at? It's like, yo, stripping, I mean, campground closed, all that tax revenue gone. We run a balanced budget in this state. Maybe they're expecting the Fed to bail Florida out. But Fed is getting taxed overtime, man. They're working hard at the Fed right now. I'm impressed with how well the Fed is keeping it together. I mean, the Fed is like the ultimate bilge pump. Like, they are doing work. Not going to be able to do enough work to prevent what's about to happen or has already happened. But who are these local politicians and state politicians? Who are these people? Who do they think they are? Like, can't go to the beach? You got plenty of social distancing out there. You know, plenty of it. Like, it's the beach. Like, the beach is like a disinfectant in itself. It's the beach. It's like ocean air. Like, it's as good as it gets. You don't need politicians. Your lives would be so much richer without politicians. There's a book called The Not So Wild West. It's about anarchy and why every time you have an anarchical system, you always have higher growth economically. Always. And you have lower crime rates. People don't understand that. A lot of these governments fail, like Zimbabwe's and all that type of stuff. By the way, the creator of New Modern Monetary Theory, yeah, he basically ran the Fed of Zimbabwe. And his apprentice ran Bernie Sanders' campaign, the economic portion of Bernie Sanders' campaign. So, yo, New Modern Monetary Theory, let's go! Zimbabwe!